when I started with Mystery Fossil, I realized what the graphics capacities were that I had not experienced on the IBM world, and began to realize potentials. I had no idea what hypermedia really was. I had seen a hypermedia product in Mystery Fossil. I did not understand that it was a separate programming language that allowed you to do all sorts of things. I needed that technical support. I still get afraid of the laser disc. I get terrified when I have to bring in this computer in front of the classroom. But I don't have to worry about how it works, because that support is there, and I can work through that fear a whole lot more effectively. As we began to do the development of Hominid Journey, it took a great deal of learning on my part to sit down and try to work with Ken to understand what was going on. I have gotten to the point where I understand a few scripts. I've got models of scripts that I can just basically paste in and recreate one page of information in a new page. I had to learn what it was to digitize pictures. I could certainly do that. I think the second thing is that had I not had enough drive to take the time, it was a great deal of investment. And the only real support we had here was the fact that I had that technical support of someone like Ken. There's a learning curve that a faculty member has to have. There's also a desire to make this change in the way you teach. And that desire is going to have to translate into a lot of hard work. It's well worth it. You measure that worth in the classroom, and it's the little things. It's those questions earlier in the semester that you don't generate, that a student generates. It's the recognition that they're getting something out of it, and they say that to you. Or they say it to the associate dean who was in the classroom evaluating you. And two of them follow him across campus and say, "This is a good class." Here with hypermedia, we could involve the picture and the text at the same time, and make sure that there was no unclear ground that the student had. And that was the reason I think we went from having a commercial product to one that we developed on our own. And Hominid Journey was developed as a real response to get those visual images tied to text, tied to definitions, tied to the whole package of material we wanted students to learn. And we have the following kinds of video presentations that would support that understanding that they're gaining from the computer. And then we've got textual material, which is available in the library context to augment this. It changes the way you structure the course. It also changes the way you may use a textbook. It changes the way in which you integrate information. When you shift from spoon-feeding information, giving them dates and fossils to memorize, or primates and classification schemes and all this kind of stuff, what you end up with is a fairly standardized lecture. Now we're away from that. Now you walk into class and you probe with questions, you explore with discussions, and the whole class changes its outlook. A real important ingredient, I think, in terms of where the faculty role is that if a faculty member is going to do this, they need that technical support. They need support of administration to get them the equipment which is needed to do this. I've been relatively fortunate to have both of those. But I think it's not only the intimidation of the equipment and the technology which is out there, but also the idea that you're going to change the way you teach. I got up there and lectured for many, many years, and now I don't do that. I began to realize that hypermedia applications were beneficial to my student learning, and that they had an impact on how I related to students, what the student could learn. And in exploring how hypermedia was part of that instructional package, I started to explore what Project Jefferson was about, and learned where it could fit relative to the other things that I was working with. And I think Project Jefferson functions as our roadmap of what students are expected to do, what they're expected to learn. It provides them with basic information that they can move from that platform out to other platforms or resource areas and learn from. It increases the learning universe for a student. It says, here's what your universe is. Here are all the resources which are in this library context. Media material, books, journal articles, computer programs. It just says, here is what you can learn from. And it gives them a little bit of a handle on that learning universe. It structures it for them. And I think that's an important part of this creating of a universe for learning, that you need to have some structure. If you leave it wide open, students are going to get lost. And it's not just the computer which is operating in that information commons. And I've always felt that what we're doing is broadening the learning environment for our students. And the classroom is now part of that. The library is now part of that. Media services is part of that. And that's a dimension to teaching which a year ago had no way of understanding until I could actually see what the information commons was like. And I think as students work with computers and student-teacher relationships shift as a result of the way in which you instruct around a computer, then the teacher becomes less an adversary in their minds and more a resource that can be tapped into. And I think at least as far as I can tell, the computer allows the student and teacher to become closer. I guess what brought that home is, as I work with students who are on the computer doing a hypermedia application, my name changes. I'm no longer Dr. Effland, I'm just Rick. And that's a shift in that relationship between student and teacher, where I can become almost a peer with them. I take away the shield that's between us as student-teacher roles get defined in most classes. One of the things which we're trying to sort out is that the instructor has a relationship to students, which is no more the adversarial role. It's not somebody who sits up in front of a classroom and lectures. It's somebody who's working with them. I tend to use the term intellectual bodyguard. I'm there and I'm easily accessible. And with the at-risk students, I think that they felt a little freer to ask for help. And particularly in the community college environment, you have those really good learners and then the ones who were at risk. And I think the secret is that this works for all those levels. And you push that advanced learner into higher plateaus. And you take that other learner who is probably having difficulty reading, difficulty grasping ideas, and you're giving them a visual picture. And when you're dealing with at-risk students, you're getting it down to the point where they can see this, they can sort of laugh at a funny-looking monkey, but they're also picking up the idea that that little guy is doing something that is more human than they would have thought. We experimented with different formats, trying to identify whether or not the computer was used more effectively on an individual learning basis, on group learning basis, or could you use it in the classroom? And we tried all of those. It became very apparent that the collaborative teamwork of small groups was most effective.
When you're with somebody else in like a group or a partner, you can't really sit there and not say anything. If you have, you have to talk about what you're doing and how you feel about it, and ask the other person what they think or how they feel.
And you get more than just the
teacher's
instructor's
point of
viewpoint
view.
and yours. You get other people's viewpoints as well, which helps.
It kind of opens you up a bit if like you're a shy person, like her.
I find myself doing journals now, like going back and repeating what I learned, because that was the first time I'd ever done a journal. And I go back and it helps me remember what I learned that class and put it into my own words. And I find that I can like talk to other students more. I'm like willing to go up to students, whereas before I just kind of sit back and...
It's definitely a critical thinking course. I almost looked at it as a quest for knowledge because the information was not handed to you. You had to seek it out, you had to search it for it, you had a lot of different ways to get that information. But what it did the best for me is it made me very curious and interested in how things operate. I found myself very excited when National Geographic came to the house. My approach before I came to school was to avoid science at all costs. And now I'm heavily immersed in science, so that's a great feeling for me.
Another major development involving computer technology has been the introduction of advanced software like Apple's HyperCard, which gives small teams of subject area experts the ability to create complex interactive exercises. A fascinating example of this new technology has been a national award-winning project involving the restructuring of an introductory archaeology course. The organizing core of the course is a desktop-published study guide. The one weekly lecture is highly motivating. Students spend their remaining time reading and working in a small learning center, where computer workstations allow small groups as well as individuals to work through exercises. Some of these creative exercises are tutorials. Some are simulations involving actual archaeological data. All focus on problem solving and synthesis skills. This course was designed by Professor Brian Fagan and his doctoral student colleague, George Michaels.
You know, someone says, well, God, how do you find that Lucy? How did he? Where do you look? That's where you start. Look at all of that is fossil territory. And there are fossils everywhere, as far as the eye can see. And I show this for scale, to show you that, you know, there's no little sign out there that says Lucy's here. You know, you've got to get out there and walk day in, day out, and look for fossils. You said, you know, you've just got to go back. It's almost as if Africa gets into your blood.
I was born there.
You were born there. We were all born there, and that's the point. Now I'm going to talk about very quickly some recent discoveries at Hadar, which is where I spend most of my time working in the field.
Yeah, he likes the rocks. He likes the rocks. Okay. I'm gonna wear my MCC thing. I didn't even think about that.
Just preparing it a little bit. Oops. That one did what you call an end shock, and it went all the way through.
Something came off.
Go ahead and set it on your leg. Almost. Just flat. Yeah, exactly. It should might come off, give it a little more of a punch. See if you can make an arrowhead out of that. Or...
Maybe I will survive.
There you go.
A little communication from your friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. That one was a lot cuter.
You guys have to freeze them, or like is this snow? So you're saving the fur right now, right?
Right. Yeah. and they, of course, at that time, from what we understand and know, they were probably scavengers most of the time, and they would go and they would, of course, break into. They would use the stones to break into to get to the bone marrow, that kind of thing. Which we're left with a lot of meat and a little bit of guts, and of course, you don't want to eat the latter there. Little pieces, some of the back straps have some nice meat. There's some legs if you just want to tear off a piece or whatever. You can hand around a napkin and there you can do that. Be brave. Try something new.
Must throw. Yes. Usually if you leave them alone, it's good to have a dog or a cat that's around you can relate with, or you turn the TV on. No. When they get hurt, he will cry.
So does he understand your commands?
Uh-huh. Yes. He's excited. When I punish him, it's really hard to keep the monkey still. But when he gets punished for something, he has quiet time. Or he has to sit for at least 2 minutes. That's a long time for a monkey, though. You start from the marmosets, there's macaques, there's gwynons. Macaques are like you're swinging off from a baby usually, with that other animal. And they'll end up right in the gone. Baboons can swim too. This guy, he'll get about 100 pounds.
So these only get about 15 inches? You don't want to put that in your mouth.
This guy's here.
Oh, yeah.